They'll come up blurry, don't worry.
I'm gonna let him get situated.
Yeah.
So, hi.
How's it going?
I recognize some faces. I don't know some other ones. I'm Stephanie. This is Bryant. We're the Brass Apple. Yay.
No, seriously.
Clap, damn it!
Yeah.
Is it one yet?
Yeah, I got a little reminder from guys. Didn't think I should have helped you before. Yeah, that's one. We're good.
Yay.
Right, so we're the Brass Apple. Woo! Yeah, yeah, they see.
Yay. Excitement.
We're not paying them, but that's because we're broke.
Yeah.
So, Steampunk 101. Fair amount of time we get people who already know what Steampunk is, already kind of involved. I already see goggles. And then a lot of times they've heard of it, they've kind of seen it, but really don't know a whole lot. We've been in Steampunk now for
3?
oh, wow, 1
I
or 2.
remember.
Okay. A little while. Honestly, like first time we basically went, ooh, shiny, was about 3 Acons or so ago, I think, 3 or 4. And it was the Airship Isabella and some of the Skydog crew.
Yeah.
Curse them.
Different times.
Yes,
kind of
curse
going.
them. I don't know what that is, but I want to do that.
And then the
Whatever it
next
is.
year, we actually like sat in on one of the panels, and then we hung out with, you know, the Airship Isabella crew, like for most of the con too, especially
Take
for
lunch
eating.
with them.
Yeah. But we've gotten to know them as well as the Skydogs, because the Skydogs are mostly based out of Austin, so we talk to them constantly.
We hang out at Ben Happy's place.
And that's honestly like when you start getting involved with Steampunk, as the gentleman in the back can tell you, you start to know people and the connections are there, and it's just like, hey! You know, it's like your best friends, yet you haven't seen each other for 3 months or however long ago the last con was. A couple of weeks now, was it? So, give you a basic rundown, or actually, let me ask this. What do you guys want to know about Steampunk? I want to make sure we're going to at least cover the stuff you're really wanting to find out about.
Tell me the basics, the where, the why, the how, the wardrobe.
Definitely.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
What do steampunkers do?
That's about as varied as what is steampunk. So let's get into that part there. What is steampunk? It started out being your original kind of definition created by a group of authors who were coming up with a concept, basically writing about social commentary factors, issues that they had during the time frame of the writings, which were Steampunk was 60s, 70s? 70s. So you had Jader as well as a few others kind of founding that up. They picked Victorian England as their setting. It just worked. It was one of those ones where, hey, look, even these issues existed back then, so it was a great example point to work with. And it's flashy. People look good. It's great. So they scored on the time frame, I'd say, really. The books, honestly, compared to nowadays, the books I would not say were great hits. I mean, people liked them. Yeah, there was some following. But it wasn't until it really started to kick up kind of the refreshing of steampunk that has happened over the last decade or so.
Give examples.
Well, okay.
Literary examples.
Literary examples. I mean, you've got any of Jader's writings. You've got The Difference Engine, William Gibson and Bruce Sterling?
Yes.
Yes, I always forget Bruce Sterling. Bruce Sterling. And, you know, that was written decades ago. It's not until now that people are all like, yeah, The Difference Engine, I mean, the book's really cool. Yeah. And so we've got a couple decades of people going, yeah, it's here it is. You know, oh, I've been reading Gibson stuff for quite a while, and most of them are familiar with cyberpunk. So, woo!
Describe what cyberpunk is.
Totally different social commentary about the economic factors, where corporations become nations. That kind of becomes our world. It's a near future, as opposed to steampunk, which is a retro future. you're looking at a fictional historical timeline development as opposed to a near future. Now, nowadays, steampunk has kind of meshed into the two, partly because of our own issues today, as regular people living our lives. We've got the economic issues that they had when they were writing the cyberpunk books, so I'm talking about that. We still have the social issues that existed. Women inequality, for example. One of the big ones that at least steampunk talked about. Economic issues. Look, we've got now where corporations are people. And I am waiting for, it's a great little thing is, I'll accept corporations are people when Texas decides to execute one. And it's true. I mean, we're kind of waiting for that point to happen. Now, steampunk thrives on all this. The punk side of us, on the social factor, likes to rebel against these issues and throw it in people's faces. Women can be inventors, they can be scientists. Women can be makers, which I'm starting to see more, but it would be great to see more of. Makers are folks who actually do the putting togethers of stuff, the nifty gadgets and wonderful contraptions.
They build pouches and awesome armor.
Right. You don't have to just look pretty. And the other nice thing, the aesthetic side of steampunk is everybody looks good. Even the guys look good in steampunk. It's just one of those things, Victorian style clothing. Just,
very flattering.
Yeah, it works for everybody. So we've got this development now of steampunk where we've got the social issues still, and we're rebelling against it. We've got the economic issues, and we rebel against it. And part of our rebel on the economic side is exampled from the current ideas of recycling, reusing, the pulling away from the mass manufacturing that we see even in everyday life. People are trying to pull back away from that.
That's why corporate America can never retail steampunk very effectively.
They're trying, but you can tell.
Fail.
You can tell when it is, and a lot of times.
Or people will buy it and then they'll mod it.
Right.
It'll be awesome.
That's a big thing. Like I've seen some steampunk goggles, really cheap steampunk goggles at Party City, some of the costume
Dance
places, the mass production stuff that are thrown to them to sell. And people will buy those and then mod them out into their own thing. They use it as a base form or whatever, because sometimes they're really cheap. Mustaches on a stick. Dude, Scream, that big Halloween, store that comes out and everything. They are Spirit. They had mustaches on a stick. I was like, oh really? Come on. I mean, so we're even seeing that mass produced.
But Tada Boutique has really awesome ones.
But that's where you see one of those differences. Spirit might sell them, and some people will get it, okay. But for the most part, it's not going to be a seller item for them because of the steampunk mentality that kind of happens.
Mustaches are kind of coming back anyway.
Well, the mustaches do, but people would rather actually buy it from someone like Tada Boutique, the Sky Dogs, when they have them out there as well. The actual crafted ones. Because they're not very expensive and they feel better about it being crafted. There's just that feel-good aspect to it that you don't get in a mass manufactured product.
You get to know the people who made it, and you go, awesome job, I want one of those.
We actually make stuff as well. We do have a little bit of a business as far as the steampunk stuff, doing accessories and other things.
It's also under the Brass Apple name. So just remember Brass Apple.
And yes, we actually buy some of our materials that are mass produced, especially for jewelry supplies, things like that.
Yeah, Michael's and Hobby Lobby are.
And then I put it together. Am I selling the jewelry, really taking into account the material costs? Not so much. I'm selling jewelry for my design of it, my assembling of what I put together for it, not for the materials on that. If I was handcrafting all those, then yeah, you'd see a significant increase in the price because of that too. I used to make chainmail. Damn near no one makes their own rings anymore for chainmail. There's groups that actually make rings in bulk, good quality stuff and everything. The Ring Lord, which is a company out of Canada, produces them, and a lot of us use them. we'll get our rings in bulk supply, and then we put it together.
You can get them in pretty colors. He's gonna make me a chain mail Obi.
When I have the money.
When we have, I think
So-
the waist portion is gonna be like at least $80. But it's
Just the material. So here's the thing, on that, we've got this resurgence. So recycle, reuse. We love, there's a do-it-yourself mentality in steampunk, all right? There are people who definitely just go in for the aesthetic side, but a lot of people get bitten by the crafting and maker bug. And when you do, you start to salvage out parts from things. You know, gears, where do we get them? Yeah, there are people who actually produce gears, machine them out or whatever in mass. But a lot of people actually get them from old clocks. Why not? You know, the only
careful,
reason is for safety. Grandfather clocks.
grandfather clocks.
Unless you know how to actually do it,
Don't touch it.
disassemble it yourself.
There's a spring, there's a big coil thing that's wrapped really tightly, and yeah, you could pretty much kill yourself on that thing.
There's a really, really nasty image that you can see as a result of a guy who was the victim of one of those coils unwinding. It's just, the coil's like this big around, right? With about that wide of a strip, a flat strip of metal, tightly wound. Large gash. Fair amount of surgery.
Pretty
So-
much sliced half his face off.
Yeah, have someone do it. Some of the stuff you can get out there, but when it comes to those coils,
Don't touch it.
and you have to get that coil out to get to some of the rest of it. Just take it
to
into
a
a place.
clockmaker.
Yeah, take it into a clock place and suffer the small cost of
Not dying.
having them do it. Yeah, it's worth it. Now again, there's bags and bags of like watch parts and everything like that available on eBay too. Feel free, buy them, whatever. Now,
Yeah,
putting a gear, slapping a gear on it, that mentality, it's been going around. Some people criticize it, etc. My preference even is, if you're gonna put a gear on something, at least let the gear move. I don't
Make
care
it
if it actually
functional.
has real function, like it moves and causes something else to. No. Just
That would be cool.
rivet it through the middle, let it spin, whatever. You know. So there's
Leatherwork,
variations.
Do a cog, like tool a cog. Don't just slap.
That's cool because people will just admire your artwork to it to begin
Yeah.
with, or even if you painted it on, they'll be like,
Hey, good job.
you know.
Better than just gluing a gear on it.
So I just kind of burned through a whole bunch of stuff and not necessarily all that wonderfully organized. So what else?
What do you want to know?
Have I confused anybody? Sweet, because I thought I confused myself. Yeah,
How do you feel about the lifestyle choices of the airship Isabella?
lifestylers versus others. We'll go for that.
We love
you
them,
get the
but they're
degree.
crazy.
you get the degree of people that get involved. I mean, it's like cosplay. There's people who are really big into cosplay where they're practically wearing it every day as much as they can. You know, we don't quite have Harajuku girls or anything like that here in the States, but we're getting close. And as far as steampunk goes, we do have people that like regular everyday clothing, yes. Again, it looks nice. So there's not a lot of complaint about people dressing steampunk. Now, trying to pull off steampunk Borg look every day, yeah, that can be a little difficult. So there's some practicalities to it. But there are plenty of people who just get into it during the events. Like, hey, it's a steampunk con, all right, cool. And they dress up. Or, hey, we've got a little meetup, and then they dress up. But outside of that, they don't. We're honestly kind of close to that ourselves. Love steampunk, but I don't have the money to wear it every day.
And I don't have the desire to give up any sense of a secure future to travel around as much as I love them going around and educating the entire United States about steampunk. I love them for doing it. I could never do it in my lifetime.
They did make a decision to kind of go all in. And to
It's
do
all
so,
in.
they've had to actually do what they do.
He used to be a firefighter.
Yeah, and she's had her own job
She
as
was,
well, which
uh,
she dropped and went
Some
off.
kind of secretary. That was awesome.
So what we're looking at, like for example, ours, we kind of do a side business, and then we also do the aesthetic side. And we like to try to get involved with panels. But it costs. And honestly, sometimes the business side for us is more of a way to help compensate those costs so that cons aren't having to dump it out as well.
Yeah.
And Isabella kind of goes on the same route. That's why they always try to have some vending there so they can try to recoup some of that cost and actually make a living off of it.
It means they can eat.
Now, so there's
No, I'm
lifestyles
serious.
and then there's business and lifestyling as well. They do both.
Yeah.
There are others who are just kind of more lifestylers throughout the U.S., throughout the world, especially England actually has a fair amount of lifestylers too.
I wish I had that.
More power to them. You know, if they enjoy it and they like it, then great. Obviously, the whole grasp on reality factor is always a question whenever you get that involved in anything. And I'd say most of them have it, so not a problem. But
Most of them.
yeah, most. I mean, there's always some that don't.
There was an event at Louis Anime where they held a guy at gunpoint.
Now there is a LARPing, a live action role playing kind of side that has been going on, especially here in Texas.
Especially with Airship Isabel.
Yeah, and Isabel is one of the main.
They tend to slip
groups.
in and out between character, like in character and out of character.
And they've been trying to interwork that within conventions, you know, here and there. There's been a lot of testing and sorts with it going on. I think it did okay at ClockworkCon. I think the only complaint I heard about on that one was they basically didn't start until like dinner time on one of the days, and it was like from there for a few hours. It was it. And so people who wanted to only had that amount of time to be able to do it with. But one of the difficulties in doing it at a convention is the distraction and interruptions that are potential when trying to do that with everything else that's going on. Those people actually involved in panels, viewing panels, trying to walk around and look at stuff, hanging out, or whatever. I mean, sometimes socializing. We actually had a problem at the Difference Engine, I call it the prototype, the little one-day event that they had. And one of the issues was we're sitting there talking with some folks, and then somebody comes up and like instigates some little role-playing thing that they have to get pulled away for, and even they were like, "Really? I'm okay." And so they go off and deal with it.
Yeah.
As well as some distractions that like people that had no clue about the LARPing going on, suddenly there's this big and everybody's like, what?
What the heck's going
So it kind
on?
of freaks some people too.
Yeah.
So-
Especially since one of the scenes involved a bomb. That was fun.
Yeah, bomb convention center.
No.
No.
Yeah. So there have been mistakes, and those mistakes have been worked on, which is cool. There's been a suggestion to try to actually pull some of that outside of cons too, to give them more time to be able to do stuff as well.
It's good
and
for
interact.
character development.
Great, because right now most of the character development and interaction has been online.
Yeah.
Online, the key to everything being more than what it probably would have been. The web has helped steampunk a lot. It really, really has.
Because people hear the word steampunk and then they go Google it.
And they find out there's actually a huge group in their own town. That's something that like has allowed a lot of the groupings to get together, was all the social networking capabilities, just finding out, hey, we've got a meetup here already. And then somebody who's interested in it can go, yay, there's already like 30 people in my city. And the city's only got 500.
Speaking of meetups, does everybody know about any of the things going on in Austin for the meetups?
As well as actually there's a...
I saw shaking of heads.
There's also one for Round Rock.
There's developing one for Round
Yeah.
Rock, at least on Facebook, I think. No, Ning. They have their own Ning. Yeah.
We'll try to get more information because it's a little new on it.
Yeah,
People trying to
pretty
get,
much.
especially for the North Austin folks too, who are closer here than they might be to the rest of. So
Well, let me get to the meetups. There is we just call it Austin Steampunk, or the Steampunk Ning group. It's every other Wednesday. I think is it this coming Wednesday? That's the next one.
yes,
And it's at the Epoch Coffee Shop, which is off of North Loop. It's in North Austin, around
it's near Lamar.
Yeah,
Lamar and
51st.
Yeah.
yeah, around there. So that's kind of a casual, if you want to dress up, okay, cool. If you're just getting off work and you don't have the time or don't want to put forth the effort, which we often don't.
It's a meetup of a bunch of folks whose common interest is steampunk,
You
as
don't
well
have
as
to-
other things too.
you don't
I mean,
have to
seriously,
talk
we
about
sit there and bullshit about anything. It's not always steampunk.
And it's fun.
And,
It's a lot of fun.
and then and that's every other Wednesday. And then there's a Beer Brass and BS at the South Congress Oval Divines, run by the Mysterium, which I think she set up a new shop, but
She's back at Things Celtic.
Oh, okay. Things Celtic.
That one's like the third Tuesday, I think, of every month.
Yeah.
Approximately. That. The
If
best
you
way
want to
is
know,
to
come ask us. We'll look it up on our calendar.
or find the Mysterium on Facebook and like the page, etc. She posts to it fairly regularly. And yes, the Mysterium
was-
used to be a shop
In the Community Renaissance.
that
Market.
did neo-Victorian and steampunk stuff. Because of issues with her location, she left that spot and has found some space in Things Celtic for a while until maybe she finds a better single location for herself.
She likes having the more one solid place for other people to come to versus trying to do the con circuit because
Right.
that can be a little crazy.
And so she's one of the few storefronts that you find for steampunk stuff.
Especially in the South.
Yeah, which is great because then you can actually go and look at things, get a feel for it, try things on, etc. And not just go, I don't know if a top hat will look good on me, and then spend the money on getting a top hat.
Yeah, and then there's the whole fitting and
I don't look good with a
big
top hat.
heads.
Yeah. So, what else? So let's see. We did a little bit of aesthetic, but the aesthetic, and getting into some of the variances. So steampunk has some subgroups of sorts. And I say of sorts because the subgroups overlap a lot. They also overlap into other areas. Neo-Victorian's not exactly a subgroup, but it's.
Might as well be.
I mean,
We've taken them
they
over.
probably don't want to be called a subgroup of steampunk. They'd rather steampunk be called a subgroup of them, but it's kind of hand in hand. So Neo-Victorian, you've got basically people who just love the Victorian styling and everything. They're not going to be all gadgeted out. They're just going to have the clothing. Then you have diesel punk, kind of a later time frame.
That's more of turn of the century to World War II-ish.
When you look at it, steampunk is your definer for steampunk tends to be steam as your primary source of energy and power, and the development around that. And then diesel just moves into a diesel engine, work for that instead. And so you get, again, that turn of the century, I'd say up to about World War II. So you've got certain vehicles. When you do see vehicles, they tend to be like those. People love the really long, stretched out front kind of look on the cars and stuff. You also get the planes, and you get trains. Everybody loves trains.
Love a train.
Let's see. You've got post-apocalyptic, where it's kind of a return to steam because of disaster in the future that occurred.
Disaster in the future?
Of sorts. Yeah.
The current future. Not
Current future. Yeah.
obviously the future.
Future from us.
Yes.
So, basically you've got this, disaster has occurred, blah, 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 for whatever reason. It could be anything from a disease, plague kind of factor.
Zombies.
Zombie resurgence. Nuclear holocaust, whatever. People vary that a lot. But then there's this return back to steam. So in that, you don't see as much on the Victorian styling within the clothing, and sometimes you see a little more intermixture with some of the some more high tech, as
More
far as
mixing with cyberpunk.
yeah, and sometimes a little more cyberpunk mixture in there. But then again, not too much because again, it's a disaster. You're kind of working, think like Road Warrior, kind of aspect. You're working with what exists as well. And so steam power as a technology is somewhat simple compared to other technologies. So returning back to it is not as difficult to work with. Let's see, what else is
Western.
there? There's Wild West, as well as Weird West. slightly different. Wild West, you just basically take steampunk, throw it into the Wild West setting of the U.S.
Cowboys and Indians.
There are some differences. I could get into that with Edisonade versus, the whole steampunk style and everything, but that's messy. Weird West is, again, the Wild
Cowboys
West,
and aliens.
but more, Cowboys and Aliens, for example, is Weird West. It's where your integration of technology and other things is really far beyond something like a steampunk integration, kind of thing. It's weird. You've got dark steampunk, which can be anything from basically like the horror genre kind of aspecting into there. So
It's the goth side of steampunk.
the goth side. It's that and more. You've got everything from the Cthulhu kind of side to it to just sometimes I see outfits that kind of remind me of Hellraiser, like the demons from Hellraiser. That and steampunk kind of intermixed if the two had a bastard, horrible child thing. Yeah. There you go. There's so you get a lot of mixture. Yes.
There's one more.
And then there's us.
Then there's us. Yes.
There's us. I was going to get there.
Okay.
Multicultural or cultural steampunk. Basically, those of us who actually see steampunk outside of just Victorian England or the immediately surrounding European areas.
Yes. We kinda
Steampunk
want
that exists in Japan,
Yay.
China, India, Africa,
Southeast Asia.
South America. It's doable, and that's why we have our other panels, multicultural steampunk, so you can find out how it's doable, plus a whole bunch of education. So on that side, because there are some sticklers, you have the elitists kind of thing, the type people who are like, the purists. Steampunk is only the Jader definition, etc. It's only in Victorian England, and it's only this stuff, etc.
It's this specific time frame.
Yeah, and it's got to be in that like late Victorian era.
And you have to use the patterns that they use.
There's some that you can get that. There's that much of a stickler to it. Materials and patterns, etc. of the time frame. We're not that.
We're not that much nerds. We're not.
And actually, a lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about it. There are going to be those ones that are out there. And I'd say, honestly, I think they're becoming a little less vocal now, because every time they try to say something like that, there's so many people that are just like, oh, hell no. So one of the problems, though, that we have is that the definition of steampunk has become so
Broad.
vague at this point that it's kind of really, what is steampunk? And it's hard to say. It's probably easier to say what's not steampunk than what is at this point.
Our example of trying to explain steampunk is like trying to explain what Japanese street style is.
If anybody really knows anything about that, you go, yeah.
You can identify that it's Japanese street style.
But if
you
anybody
can't
asks
tell them
you,
why.
give me specifics as to what it is, it just doesn't happen. And that's kind of becoming the same issue in steampunk. It's a lot harder to say what specifically is steampunk. Now, there's a great article that I read, except for one little paragraph in it, which annoyed the hell out of me. But the idea in the article was talking about how we're becoming more of like the narrowing that's happening is more in an area where we're saying this is more or less steampunk, based on how many elements, typical elements kind of thing are in there. Does it have goggles? Okay, there's some steampunk element there. Is it Victorian era? Okay, there's a steampunk element there. And the more of them you add, the more steampunk it is. But just because you've got Justin Bieber doing a Christmas video with some steampunk elements in it doesn't mean the video is steampunk, or that Justin Bieber's going steampunk. It is nice because it's exposure.
Yes.
And if we really want to get the movement kind of going, behind steampunk, because there is actually a social movement still there, then cool. The more people that know about it, yay.
Just don't spam Robert Brown's Facebook wall with it when things like this come out. 'Cause
Right.
It's really annoying.
And actually, Cedric started getting annoyed too for the Isabella. So Because there was a lot of people that were bitching about like, oh my God, you know, steampunk is sold out. Justin Bieber's got a hang of it, and T-Pain and all. Dude, T-Pain's microphone was fucking cool as shit. I love it.
From Harvard.
Huh?
He bought it from Harvard.
Yeah.
I believe you.
So, you know, some of the stuff you're looking at, and actually he has some other things designed, you know, as well too, because he did at least one of the songs. I don't think it was the whole album. Actually, he would talk about the whole album being steampunkish, but we'll see, because I haven't heard the music yet.
That's all auto-tuned and just typical hip-hop. There's nothing steampunk.
It's T-Pain. Okay.
Okay.
If you're not familiar with T-Pain, easy way to find out: Lonely Island. I'm on a boat.
Yeah.
Because he's in it as well, and it's the typical
hilarious.
auto-tune kind of aspect of him, but it's really funny. I'm on a boat. And there are some steampunk versions on that, like
Yes.
I'm on a blimp. Not quite. The concept was good. They didn't quite pull it off as well. I
It
thought,
doesn't.
but, yeah.
It doesn't flow as well
No.
as the original, and that's my only complaint about that video.
So, in the narrowing of which we're going to start seeing more and more nowadays, but I think that concept of the more or less steampunk is going to kind of go in there. We're constantly seeing people who are like, "Oh, Sherlock Holmes, that movie's so steampunk," and everything. Well, kinda. It's more steampunk than others. It's in the time frame. It's one element.
There's cool gears and gadgets.
There's gadgets, especially the little, if you saw the second movie, the little respirator thing. And the little vehicle as well. That was pretty cool too. So, I mean, there's another element. There's a point where he has goggles on his head. So, I mean, that's the third one. So it's in there, but it's not steampunk. There's flavors of it. There's aspects, characteristics, elements.
Okay, let's get into the steampunk attitude thing. We like to talk.
What about that? You go for that one.
All right.
I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, he talks too much. Ignore him. Basically, like for us, it's not so much how you dress, because you can dress steampunk, but not really be steampunk.
I can see a kid walking down the street with deep goggles on his head. Am I going to say steampunk?
Probably not.
But
If
you
you-
talk to the kid, and maybe he actually is. Maybe he's actually got the interest. Maybe he's got the attitude you see, the characteristics you see in people that have been involved in steampunk. He's got the light bulb constantly gone in his head kind of thing, Somebody needs to make a hat like that. Anyways, things like that, where he's walking around going, oh yeah, somebody needs to... Or,
I could totally
I can steampunk that. And if all he's got is a cheap pair of goggles on his head, yeah, okay, he's steampunk. But he could also not have the goggles on his head and still have that attitude, and I might still consider him steampunk. But I'm not going to know unless I actually find out something about him. And that's what you're looking at. Now, people who are obviously wearing, a full get-up and everything make it obvious. Whether it's Steamborg or something else, or even Skydog's, outfits. You can look at it and it makes you a lot more obvious. You're like, oh, steampunk. Especially walking around an anime con like this. But like, anime is a great example. There are animes that are closer to or more steampunk than others, but then there's some that have like little elements. Hayao Miyazaki loves to throw in steam contraptions and clockwork stuff because he loves them to begin with. Is he doing it to make steampunk animes? No, he just loves the stuff, and we love him for it. So there's cool and nifties. Is it spirited away steampunk? No, but there's some cool stuff in it.
So was last time.
Howl's Moving Castle. Is it steampunk? No, but dude, the castle walks. I mean,
It's like the gigantic spider in Wild Wild West.
yeah, this one was Wild Wild West steampunk. You can consider it to be. That's one that's a little more in there. You got the time frame. You got a lot of elements in there. It's got a huge frickin' spider.
Back to the Future 3.
Yeah, Back to the Future. Well, I mean, even more so in
haven't watched that in
Wild
so
Wild
long.
West.
Steam train.
The guy's wheelchair. holy crap, that was cool.
That was
He gets
cool.
out of it and he's like, half a body and there's a whole
That
thing.
was
And then he's got the
right.
leg attachments that come out from him as well. I mean, dude, that thing rocked. So you get stuff like that. Then you have movies that are much more obvious, like Steamboat. And then you have others where they're not so much.
But are really cool, like Last Exile.
Golden Compass. Okay, is Golden Compass steampunk? No, clockwork. Probably better to call it clockwork, more so than anything else. And you do see things like clockwork, for example, get trumped into steampunk. Dieselpunk gets trumped into steampunk. They are separate. There are things that define them outside of. For clockwork, obviously, clockwork gearing, etc. Is steam involved? Sometimes, but it doesn't have to be. It's primarily clockwork, I think. It makes it really, really obvious. This is the whole focus. And that's where you see that difference. Focus on steam, focus on diesel, focus on clocks.
Okay, anybody else have questions, comments? Go ahead.
So what about music, like Abbey Park versus Burning Process versus
Music is
mental?
That's a great way of demonstrating how varied steampunk is.
Depends on who you ask.
The steampunk genre for music has not really defined out well. So you do get a lot of variation. You get anything from steam-powered giraffe.
She's indie rock.
Huh?
It's really more indie rock.
It's indie rock, barbershop quartet kind of.
No, I saw them in San Diego on their own turf after a Steampunk event.
Yeah.
The next day, and I was the only one in an outfit, along with maybe 2 or 3 people. Everybody else there, they're all college kids that are in it.
Yeah, when they play at the zoo, San Diego Zoo and everything.
Awesome.
I mean, they're just there as performers.
They are.
And they're cool guys. But
I have
their
fun.
music, they don't exactly, they just started out playing. And then the steampunk thing kind of came in on them. They kind of, there we go. And honestly, Avenue Park kind of started out that way too.
No, they were right.
Yeah.
And no one believes me, and I'm like, dude, it's the name of
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
why I like them
Very
so
industrial.
much.
Now their music has changed more so because steampunk has just adored them. That they're like, oh hell yeah, we'll go this route. And in a way, steam-powered giraffe, especially having come to Clockwork Con. I mean, they were kind of overwhelmed. They were like, wow, this is really cool. 'Cause we had the entire con pretty much there for
Oh no,
our
over in
audience.
San Diego, they don't have the same scene. There's
Yeah.
maybe 2 crafters over there that build the stuff like SI builds and really hardcore stuff. It's very more New Victorian.
Yeah.
They're kind of tight knit, but they've been doing it for a long time.
Or they got to pull it from Seattle or something, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's bands like Bones Jangles and the Voodoo something or other. I forget the whole name of his crew. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's
which have a more pirate shanty kind of sound. You've got Vernian Process as well out of California, San
They started
Francisco.
doing video game stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, they started video games.
They dance and stuff. And
Yeah, and they're steampunky is a great way of describing them. Steampunk, people always refer to them as far as steampunk music, like, oh yeah, we consider some of the music to fit in steampunk, is what it is. But their music is a little more varied. Then you've got Sunday Driver, who's out of the UK. Again, their music fits into steampunk. They've got a very Indian sound behind their music as well. Then you have Professor Elemental, who's,
Chop hop.
yeah, the whole chap hop kind of thing is just so steampunk.
Mr. B, the gentleman.
I don't think either one of them, Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer, or Professor Elemental, actually started out in any other area. They pretty much just jumped into steampunk. They've been involved with it for a while, especially Mr. B. I think he's been in longer than Professor Elemental. But you've got, especially the battle between the two, kind of going through the chap hop, etc., that goes on with them. And it's good stuff, and it's a very different sound. I mean, even actually Professor Elemental's songs, like individually, you can see some variants within his own stuff. So it doesn't really fit an actual genre. If you want to say indie alternative because it's not something else, then okay, and that's what we tend to see. But then there's other stuff like Circus Contraption as well, which is very, how do you describe Circus Contraption? Circusy. Dark circusy. I mean, seriously, this is the music that you play when you want to creep somebody out and make them scared of clowns. If they weren't already, this will do it.
Were they the ones who did the something wicked this way?
Yes, yeah. There's that one. They've got a great little video as well. If you YouTube Circus Contraption, you'll find it, and it's a video of a bunch of stars with like really demented clown makeup on them. And I think honestly most of them were like somebody actually photoshopped in kind of thing. It was a really good job of it. But they're really good. And then there's a few, like there's one of the more recent portrayal of the Joker in there too. But I think there was John, that guy. I hate saying his name. I always stumble over it. Just some really cool ones. Go take a look at it. It's pretty cool. I mean, just the video alone. There are some steampunk bands in Japan, and they're kind of your typical J-rock, I'd say, as far as that goes. And offhand, I can't come up with any of the names of them because there's not many, but they're kind of starting in on that. Okay.
Any other
I think music.
questions?
I think we might have covered it. Yeah.
Actually, there's a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Talk to that man. If you want to know about music, talk to that man.
Project Records.
Right.
After that, like influence, like there would be no culture goals without that.
Basically, take goth music and allow it to continue.
Because
most of us used to be goth.
Stressing like that, but their attitudes were so horrible towards people. Like, I am more goth than you. Okay, so you're wearing black better than I am. Wow. I mean, there's just
kind of like in goth. I mean, that's one of the things. A lot of people who are involved in steampunk used to or still are involved in the goth scene. And it's either they've dusted off their old goth clothing, pulled it out of the closet, started to wear it again. Some joke about, steampunk when goths found brown. Because it's true for some people. That's literally what it is. But the goths had color too. And I was one of those ones where even when I'd go to a goth club, sometimes I'd wear a completely all-white outfit. It's just fun. Yeah, exactly.
You're so goth, you were what? No, that's how it happened.
Asian goth. Asian is the death color for some of the, anyways. So, you see some variants in there. Color did exist then. Color exists in steampunk. You don't have to be all black. You don't have to be all brown. You don't have to be all OD green.
Earthy colors.
Earthy colors and stuff like that. Feel free, get the vivid. There was somebody that one time went on a rant about how purple should not be in steampunk because it didn't exist, blah, 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 and high things, at the time. Dude, purple, not a problem.
Weren't bright colors a big thing during the Victorian?
Yeah, actually, bright colors were a wonderful thing. And the Victorian time frame is when purple stopped being the color of royalty, solely the color of royalty, I should say, and got integrated into a lot of other stuff. It opened up more, mainly because that time frame is post a lot of rebellions and overthrowing of governments, where they said, screw you. So a lot of that tradition behind there got tossed in the process.
We still have like 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, we're cool. Okay, what else? There's plenty more about steampunk, and I would love to show you examples, but we didn't really have any. And part of it too is, it's a one-on-one, so this is a lot more discussion-y based, I'd say, than what we'll have on some of the others.
Tell them about scars.
Scars. I did mention the LARPing, but more specifically,
as far as community goes.
Yeah, as far as communities, scars is the. Tell me what it stands for, because I always screw it.
Central Armada of Renegade Steampunks.
Yes.
All right.
It's inclusive for pretty much all the Southwest. So it's like Oklahoma, Kansas, us, Louisiana. Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, all of.
Right.
And we're all a giant group.
So basically, it's a collection of the airships and I'm going to get into that too. Airships. You don't have to have an airship. Don't worry about it.
I'm a land ship actually.
Actually, we're a train.
hover train.
We'll hover a train. It hover. It doesn't fly up a little bit. It just floats.
No. Which
you've
is
got
actually
things like
starting
that.
to exist in Japan now.
Now, the other thing too is when you get involved in steampunk, don't worry about like, I want to be part of an airship or I got to form an airship. No, but if you've got a group of you that are interested, okay, feel free.
We started out with 2 people.
Some kind of grouping, whatever. Actually, right now, that's pretty much it. It's 2. We're trying to increase it. We're talking to a few people.
Have
right now.
offered to a couple of people to
so-
venture. But
Don't feel like, I have to get involved with or whatever. Just do your own thing, because that's actually one of the joys of steampunk. You do your own thing. If you want that design in steampunk, do it. And as soon as you do it and show it off, there's going to be a lot of people, including folks from Airship Isabella, the Sky Dogs, Constantine,
cool
ourselves, that are going to look at it and go, "Dude, that's so cool!" I mean, it could be. We all are our worst critics when it comes to our work.
it's true.
We're just like any regular artist. We'll think it looks like crap, but there's always somebody that's going to go, "Dude, that's so cool." Even the concept, The sad thing is, sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I want to do that because it's so simple. There's plenty of people that have already done it." Well, if you haven't seen it, no, go ahead and do it. It doesn't matter how simple you think it is, and
Make
really,
your own pouches.
if you like it, do it. And yeah, have a go at making your own stuff. Especially if you already do cosplay outfits, it's not a far jump.
If it's not for you, come to us.
It might be a more expensive jump sometimes, but it's not a far jump. And
Thrift stores and flea markets.
yeah.
And your grandma's garage. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Now that's a great little area. Where do you get stuff? Because we get asked it a lot.
Primarily.
Where do you
thrift
get
stores
stuff for your costuming, for your gadgets, etc.?
Candy leather.
Yeah, we are. If you looked at our shopping habits, actually, if you looked at anybody in the steampunk community's shopping habits, you would actually have to question if they're involved with S&M. Some of them are, but not all of us. Because we shop at hardware stores, we shop at leather stores. You'd be really surprised at how well some of those things cross all those groups.
Yeah, we actually have a friend of ours who she's sort of a steampunk vendor, but she started making really awesome leather masks. And she
gets hit up by a lot of fetish groups, S&M groups,
she
and
makes
everything
them,
for her
like,
work.
Pony.
Yeah, as soon as she made this one with a horse,
Pony
she
play.
had pony play folks getting in touch with her. And she was kind of at first like, okay. So, I mean, and make a decision. If you do actually start selling your stuff, you do have to decide, where do you want your stuff sold? How do you want your name to get out there? If you don't care, then by all means, they start hitting you up, do it, because they got money. Outside of that, there are the thrift stores that you can go shopping at.
Thrift stores, Grandma's Garage.
She's got a couple steampunk outfits, honestly, that are just full thrift store.
Yeah.
Like every single piece in there is from a
Just
thrift
about.
store.
Probably.
If we didn't, somebody else bought it and gave it to us.
Yeah. Then there's always, garage sales, but those are a little bit more. Depends on the person.
Garage sales, estate sales, feel free, hit them up, take a look. Also, some of the groups like your lodges, for the men's, et cetera, like elk clubs and what are some of the other ones? The,
Crazy.
Shriners and stuff like that. They usually have like a bunch of outfits that basically the stylings have not changed very much, so they can work, for a lot of the stuff you're going to want to use. And they have a certain amount of them for all their members, and they recycle them out. They start to get a little worn or shabby looking, they get rid of them and get in new stuff. And so you'll see that stuff get sold. Also, every now and then, I don't think Austin has one, but I know Dallas has a place that actually goes and buys costuming from theater productions, opera productions,
that's
and everything.
true.
They go and buy out all that stuff, and then you can just go to this one central location for it. Now,
A lot of community theaters.
the great thing about those, it's better to go to there for some of that stuff than to go to like a costume shop. Because if you've ever felt the material in a costume shop, that stuff's nasty feeling. It's got that weird thin feel that's just like ooh, and it's
Personally,
scratchy.
Can't stand costume material.
Theater production stuff is not cheap. It has to withstand clumsy ass actors who will destroy stuff with no question. Over and over and over. And they have to last through the production run. And for especially for like operas and everything, those are really good quality things. So they're built with some durability. A lot of times they do match the patterns and stylings appropriate as well. There's a lot of theater productions who are really, really good sticklers. Like the costume mistresses and whatnot are really, really picky about getting it right. Because sometimes the directors aren't. Yeah. No, yeah. So that's a great place to go for. Then there's also steampunk vendors. For Texas, especially, you can actually go to.
This is Steampunk Artists.
Yes.
There's that. There's also the track.
That's what it was. Texas Steampunk Artists.
Texas
What's that?
Redback Coalition.
Yeah. And basically, I think it's
Texas
Redback.
Redback Artist Coalition.
Yeah.
That's it.
And the website is actually Texas-Redback, or is it just redback.com? I'm going to look on the card because it's on there. And basically what it is, it's a website for to collect all the contact information, links, and everything for Texas steampunk artists. Okay, variety of. It's theredback.com. So the-redback.com. I've got a few cards if you actually want. You can go take a look. That's actually maintained by Lisa Turner of Turner's Tokens, who's one of the steampunk vendors for jewelry and some other stuff. She loves to do a lot of found art kind of style jewelry for that.
And if you need to,
And she's got a great blog as well that keeps track of a lot of steampunk events going on, primarily Texas or very near local, but she does have other ones like some of the big ones that are going on as well.
also,
And
if you consider starting your own small business, she's a really good person to go to about PR and marketing.
She's actually looking at developing some panels, so hopefully we'll start seeing her at some of the conventions on how to actually run a small business, like craft business.
Also, I
everything.
quoted them, they said last, I guess 2 weeks ago, over Con ASI, and the Rogues are very open and will help anybody out who's getting started on business.
Yeah, they're actually doing the more business side of, while I think Lisa's focusing more on the marketing,
Marketing.
kind of aspect of it,
It's
how to
getting
market
your tax
and
license
be
Talking to
successful.
your comptroller, getting
Right.
started away your taxes and how to ship it.
We can-
and not get in trouble.
And we can give you some information on that as well. And the stipulation on all of that is, and we will tell you left and right, when it comes down to it, go see a CPA. We can give you information and hints and some resources and all, but to cover your ass, because you want to do it when it comes to your business, definitely have a CPA involved to overlook stuff. Even if you're good at keeping track of everything and everything, you want the CPA to actually look over it, because when you get audited, you can point to your CPA and go, dude, where did you mess up? And CPAs are covered for that. You're not. Okay?
This is especially true, apparently, if you are, what's the word I'm looking for? Getting things from overseas.
Oh my God, if you're importing, that's a whole mess. Talk to Amelia of the Airship Isabella. She will give you a story and she will tell you. Basically what you want to do is you want to deal with an import broker. You want to pay them everything they asked for on having it done through the broker. Like, not even one of those, here's the paperwork and you fill it out. No, have them do all the paperwork also. Because there's one form sometimes that won't get handled, and that's what's almost screwed them over. And you want to make sure, because basically what happens otherwise is you get Department of Homeland Security giving you a call going, if this stuff actually makes it here because you didn't have this form filled, you're going to jail. And you're like, what? Yeah, so have the broker deal with it, because then it's on their ass. All right? Other than that, yeah, especially if you do want to set up a business, there's a few things, especially statewide, that I can tell you plenty about because we've had to deal with it.
All right, real quick, because we're almost out of time. At 4 o'clock, come back to this room and you get to listen to me talk instead of him, all about traditional Japanese clothing.
And tomorrow is the multicultural steampunk panel.
No, it is not.
No, that's
It's
Sunday.
the
Sorry,
Obi
Sunday.
tying workshop,
Obi
which
tying
I'm
workshop.
also running. So if you have an Obi or want to know how to tie an Obi, come talk to me, come learn.
Sunday, 11 o'clock.
Sunday, 11 o'clock in main events is multicultural Steampunk.
That is true.
That is where we'll be for the rest of it, to tell you how you can do it with other cultures, because that's what we specialize in.
That's what we do.
I like it.
Oh yeah, well it can be dirty, but yeah, and part of that is how to do it without hitting stereotypes and offending people. So that's
Yeah.
the real reason we do the panel.
Please avoid steampunk geisha.
Cool. Any other questions? Feel free to hit us up. Other than that, we're gonna get out of here.
Go to the Matsuri. No, wait, the Matsuri's at 5.
That's fine.
Matsuri's
Come to
at
my
5.
panel
And then
at
go to
4
Matsuri.
and then go to the Matsuri.
Yeah.
Okay, off with you.
Cool. Bye bye.
Thanks, Ed.